What's up, True Crime World? You're here with Luminol on the Wall. I'm Bevy.
And I'm Becky. And today's case is about a woman who becomes the subject of unwanted obsessions. When she misses her flight back home, her adoring family is quick to action. They immediately request a welfare check and immediately begin an investigation of their own. This is a case of Miya Mercano. Listeners' discretion is advised.
Hello, LOTW family. And hey, Becky.
Hey, Beverly and LOTW family.
Today is a rather crappy day for me, and I'm so excited to just dive into true crime to kind of, forget that this day ever happened.
Yes, Bev.
Nothing crazy happened. Don't think that it's truly the end of everything here, like I'm making it seem. But I did get a shoe thrown in my face very hard, and I bawled like a baby.
To be clear, it was by a child.
And yeah, it just made my day bleh, poopy.
Yeah, it does. She has a little mark on just on the inside of her nose. It's very subtle now, but I can see it as I'm sitting here.
Yeah, you can see it as you're sitting there, and it was swollen.
She cried.
I cried. It's you don't want to actually cry over a little child semi-abusing you, but it still hurts. It still hurts, even though it's a kid. It's ugh.
You know how sometimes you cry when you're just really frustrated? Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily oh my God, that hurts so bad. It's
no, this actually hurt.
Oh, okay.
I'm not even kidding. As soon as it happened, when you get so hurt that you just
cry,
you can't help but cry. It's I am in pain, and that was so crappy.
Yeah.
I ran out of the classroom. I was I need a moment.
I'm crying.
Yeah.
You know what? Actually, now that you're talking about it, I did get beaked in the bridge of my nose today.
Oh, by Rocky?
Rocky's cone.
By his damn cone.
He was laying on my bed, and I was like, come here. and he just, I don't know, he came at me with bullet precision and speed. And it was just gook, right in the bridge of my nose. I had just done my makeup. That's exactly what I did.
I know. You're I don't want to love you right now.
It wasn't that bad, but I was I just did my makeup. And then I'm did you just peel some of my skin off? Because it felt
did you just
I was oh my God.
You
I went into my
freaking dog.
Yeah, I went into my bathroom. He's just sitting there
so
I love
happy.
my mommy. And I'm no. I'm okay, no, my skin is still intact. It is red. It looks like I have a crazy suntan across the bridge of my nose, but it went away. I do feel I got over mine a little quicker than, unfortunately, yours.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The swelling, is, yeah, it doesn't make me forget it really quick.
Actually, now that you're stroking it.
I am stroking it, yes. I was
I can see the little bit how
it's raised.
It's raised. Here. Poor Bevy.
Poor me.
You know what? You do such good work for those kids. It's just, I'm so sorry you have to deal with that stuff.
Yeah. Getting abused. I know. It sucks. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, it does. A little demoralizing. It's like a child. You're God.
How could you hurt me so bad?
Yeah, why do I come to work?
Yeah, why do I come here?
Yeah.
God.
Jeez. Anyways, Bev does love her job.
Focus on the good things.
Loves her job. It's almost summertime. She gets a 2-month break.
Yes.
And we should actually have an uptick in maybe positive, happy stories.
Yeah, exactly.
Bev's going to come to our next show in 4 weeks.
Yes, I'll come to our next show in 4 weeks.
In one of our future shows, and she'll be oh my God,
life is grand.
Life is so great.
Look at that sun. It's so bright.
A leaf landed on me today.
Has it always been so blue?
I saw a caterpillar today.
We have caterpillars in our classroom.
Bev sees caterpillars every day. They mean nothing to her. All right, well, let's get into it, Bev, before we...
But I do want to say one thing about these caterpillars now that you brought them up. We're watching them cocoon.
Oh, that's cool.
It is cool. They're going to be butterflies, but one died.
Did you kill it?
No.
Oh, it fell?
Well, we got this food for them, right? And it's, I don't know, we put apples in there and we put a cantaloupe in there, like a piece of cantaloupe. And me and the teacher were like, this is going to be great. Like, look at, they're going to love it.
They're going to love this fruit.
They're going to love the fruit, right? And they did. But then it got moldy. The whole cage is festered in mold.
Oh, no.
So I think that's why maybe this one fell and died.
He died in the mold.
He's breathing in the fumes. And the other one still hasn't cocooned, and he's just, I don't know, trying to eat what is left of the stuff that's not moldy. I don't know. It's mold everywhere. Now the teacher that I have, she's just like, I just want to get rid of this thing. Like, I'm just so disgusting to look at. And I said to her, I was like, oh, maybe that is why they came with these like prepackaged like food. Because it doesn't go moldy. Maybe that's why. That's what we were supposed to feed.
You guys are caterpillar killers.
Caterpillar killers, baby.
You know, that started off as a really nice story. Like, oh my gosh, the caterpillars, they're cocooning. Oh my gosh, they're going to turn into butterflies. Actually, we've almost killed them single-handedly.
Yes. So...
All right. Well, now that we're on the topic of death,
yes,
thank you, Beverly. Thanks. Good segue. Yep. Let's get into our story.
Yes. Although it's less laughable, this one.
That is the truth. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Although slightly disturbing that we're laughing that hard at killing caterpillars because they turn to beautiful butterflies. But here we are.
We are.
Don't hate us. Don't judge us. It was funny. So today's case is about a young woman named Miya Mercano. She was born in Pembroke Pines, Florida on April 26, 2002. Her father's name was Marlon and her mother's name was Yima. She also had a brother named Marlon Jr. When Miya was younger, her mother and her father separated, but they remained a close-knit family. Miya was an ambitious young girl and people just gravitated towards her. She had graduated high school in 2020, just months after the pandemic hit. Although the pandemic halted a lot of people's post-high school plans, Miya was determined to continue to move forward, and so she decided to move to Orlando. Miya moved to Orlando to go to school. This was about an hour or two away from her family in Fort Lauderdale. Now, Miya had chosen Orlando because it was still close to home, and she wanted to attend the University of Central Florida. While attending, she only studied there for about a year before transferring to Valencia College for her associate's art degree. At that point, Miya was contemplating becoming a physiotherapist or doing something in sports medicine, so a little different than an art degree.
Yeah, definitely different.
Now, while in college, Miya lived in the Arden Villas apartment complex. This was close to UCF, and she lived there with a roommate. Many of the other residents in that complex were also students, so it must have been a little bit of a party place. You know, I bet they all had a real good time there. Now, Miya and her roommate lived on the ground floor, and when her father Marlon helped her move into the villas, he installed locks on the windows because he kind of feared that they were susceptible to have a break-in, maybe someone could hurt them, something like that, right? Like they're young females. It can happen.
Absolutely. And first time like living away from home, I can see why dad would be like, let's get y'all the bells and whistles. Make sure you're safe.
Exactly. And on top of that, he also encouraged his daughter to carry pepper spray just around town for her safety as well. Once Miya had moved into the villas, she actually got really lucky because she landed a part-time job at the Arden's Villas leasing department. So she helped people rent the suites.
Nice.
This saved her a ton of time for travel, and it just seemed like everything was falling into place for her. On Friday, September 24th, 2021, Miya worked until 5 p.m. She then had to rush to her apartment to get her stuff and head directly over to the airport to catch a flight. She was flying back home to see her family for the weekend. Now, normally Miya would be in communication with her family, letting them know like, hey, just got off of work, heading to the airport. Oh, I'm at the airport, getting on the plane. I'm home, bitches. You know, maybe not quite in those words, but she would be in contact with them.
Yeah, letting them know exactly where she was in the whole process, how close she was to home, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, but this was different this day. It was different because she didn't text anyone or call anyone. So her family thought, okay, maybe something happened to her phone. Maybe she's rushing after work. So they let it go and they decide to meet her at the airport, just like was planned. However, Miya did not show up at the airport. No, she did not. And so obviously her family is freaking out because there is absolutely zero reason why she shouldn't have shown up or at least communicated not.
Coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously her lack of communication prior to the flight is now even more concerning because it's like she would have, if for any reason, communicated that she had missed her flight or like something came up. Like someone who's close to their family, like wouldn't just ignore them at a time such as this, right? Like your family's coming to pick you up from the airport. Why wouldn't you say anything?
Yeah, they're going to worry if you are just MIA, right?
Exactly.
And it was out of her character, so her family knew something was up and they proceeded to call and text her, but her phone went straight to voicemail and there was still no responses to their texts.
Oh, God.
Around 9:30 p.m., Miya's family still had not heard from her and still going to voicemail, so they decide to call Orlando Police Department requesting a welfare check on their family member. So obviously, Miya's family was concerned and they started the 2-hour drive to Orlando to see if they could find her themselves.
Wow.
That's how concerned they were. They packed up and went.
That is kind of wild and really, really like solid family, hey?
Oh, yeah. They are going to like intervene, do whatever they can. Even if maybe she's just at home like deathly ill, completely forgot to text them, they're going to get to the bottom of it.
Or even like lost her phone or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So while the family's traveling to Orlando, the sheriff arrives at Miya's apartment at 10:02 p.m.
To do the welfare check.
Yes. Now, the officer knocks on the door. No one was there. Nothing outside looked out of the ordinary. And so the officer decided to go around to the side and look through the window. He couldn't see anything of concern, and so he left, assuming everything was fine. And fast forward to 3:30 a.m. Miya's family arrives in Orlando, and they head directly to her apartment. They had called the sheriff's department and got them to meet them there. At the same time, Ima, Miya's mother, also contacted the news stations to get the word out about her daughter. They wanted all hands on deck, Bev.
I'm impressed with this family and just like how quick their response is and how thorough their response is. Like, go to a different city, call police, check out the home themselves, get officers to meet them there, call news stations. Like,
yeah, they were on top of it.
They clearly love their daughter very much.
They for sure did, and you can tell by their actions. So by the time the sheriff does meet them at Miya's apartment, her roommate is home, and she lets them right in, and they go check Miya's room. Now, the weird thing is, Bev, is her door would not open, and they had no idea why. So the officers and Miya's family go to the window, and they open it, which, as we know, there were locks on the window, and that was odd that they could open it from the outside.
Open. Yes, that is weird.
But they crawled through, and they were able to get a better look. They noticed that there was a small bookshelf that had been propped against the door handle so that no one could enter the room.
Creepy.
From, like, the other parts of the apartment.
Yeah, that is so creepy.
Mm-hmm. And what Miya's family noticed right out the gate was that the locks had been broken off that window. They weren't just unlocked, they were broken off.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That is scary. So obviously someone from the outside was creeping on Miya, or at least it would seem like that, and went through extreme measures to get access to her room.
Breaking the locks. Well, we'll find out.
But that's what it seems, right?
It does.
Like what you're noticing at the
initial
viewing of like the surrounding area.
Mm-hmm. Well, what they also see, the officers notice, is that the room is a bit messy. The bed isn't made, there's jewelry strewn about the room, and Miya's luggage was still there. So they know she probably never made it to the airport.
Yeah, which makes sense with her parents not picking her up from the airport and her not showing up.
Yep, it tracks. So the officers said it looked like there could have been a struggle, but overall they thought it also kind of just looked like a messy university student's apartment.
Okay, so
they were a little conflicted, like there could have been a struggle, but was she just messy? Now, because they were a little unsure, they didn't actually report this apartment to their superiors as a crime scene. So they kind of just were nonchalant about it.
I don't know. I aside from the messy room, like I can see how they would be conflicted about a messy room, right? But having locks on a girl's window broken off and she's missing, like, I don't know.
And the door barricaded.
Yeah, that too. Like, that is freaking twisted.
Yeah, set the room disorganization aside.
Exactly. And look
those
at the other
factors
things.
are...
It's enough to at least, like, treat it as a potential crime scene, right?
Exactly. And officers even still kind of pose the question, could Miya have wanted to disappear? Could she have? Adults have that right. However, Mia's family...
They're skeptical, right? Like,
there's no way
like,
they
no
would
way.
believe that.
That makes no sense. And then also, like, why would her luggage still be there? Like, if you wanted to disappear, why not take the luggage, right? Like, you need some of your belongings.
Exactly. So while the officers are speaking with Mia's roommate, her family is able to go into her room and immediately see that the officers had missed some really important things, which, by the way, because they weren't treating it as a crime scene, they were able to go into her room, which is totally
inappropriate.
It's wrong. Like, what if they contaminate it, right?
Exactly.
So that's part of the issue that is within this investigation. It starts right at the beginning.
Right. And honestly, at the end of the day, like, her parents and her family going into her room, I'm not, like, too mad about it because, like, I think they're obviously, I don't think they're the ones that are involved in this at all. So I'm not like, oh my God, like, they're going to ruin this whole investigation.
Yeah.
If anything, I feel like since the officers aren't doing their job, if they can find some things that the officers missed, like, good on them.
Well, exactly. And so some of the things that they did notice the officers missed was this one is a little shocking. There was blood on the pillow.
Whoa.
There was an X-Acto knife under her bed. And the jewelry on the floor was bent and broken and a little out of shape. So it's not like she just dropped it or threw it on the ground like, I'm tired of wearing this.
It gives more like credibility to
the struggle.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Exactly. Now, Mia's family noticed a couple things that the officers, even if they were being really diligent, probably wouldn't have noticed because they were specific to Miya.
And her family obviously knows her very well.
Yeah, and it was only something that they would clue into. So number one being that Miya was she was a very clean person. Her bed would have been made. And the fact that it was all messy.
Was concerning and out of character.
Exactly. Number two, her jewelry was really sentimental to her and she would never have thrown it on the floor. 3, she had a little teddy on her bed and the only way she would have left it is either propped up nicely on her made bed, propped up against the pillows, or if she had left or gone traveling, she would have taken that teddy with her. It said she never went anywhere long-term without this teddy.
It was like her childhood item,
like
comfort thing. We most of us have one, right?
Yeah, a lot of people do.
Do you have one?
No, I don't.
Hey?
I used to when we were little, but it didn't grow with me.
It didn't grow.
It didn't grow with me.
It didn't grow with
I left it behind.
Some people are sentimental. Maybe you're not in the same way.
No, I would have kept something, I'm sure, if I was.
It's kind of funny because Craig and I both have one. And we both keep it in our side tables by our bed.
You weirdos. That's adorable. Me and Jamie both don't have one.
Oh, that's so funny. Sentimental and non-sentimental people find each other.
Whoa. We're sentimental, just not in like
items,
a teddy bear way.
Holding things.
Yeah.
Do you know what Craig's is?
No.
Do you know what mine is?
Is it your Dida?
Yeah, it's my Dida.
That's the name. Is it a caterpillar?
It's a snake.
Oh. I was like, wait a minute. Oh my God.
Is this about to come full circle? No, it's a snake.
Oh, phew. Thank
it's
God.
Like a rattlesnake that like squeaks.
Oh yes, I remember that little thing. What's Craig's?
It's like a flat cow, and his name's Joey.
Hey, I'm Joey the flat cow.
Yeah,
that's adorable.
Yeah, it's adorable.
You guys are made for each other. That's for darn sure.
That's for darn sure.
Darn sure.
But yeah, like obviously Mr. Teddy wouldn't be just tossed to the side and strewn about carelessly, right? It's a prized possession.
Exactly. So her family knew it was a problem, and this was all brought up to the officers and eventually examined as evidence. So it eventually got there, but they took their sweet fucking time.
And it took some convincing from her family.
Yeah.
But I do have to say, I mean, sometimes I think when we hear these investigations and we hear that like officers miss things and then other people have to convince them, or it takes a lot to get to a point of like taking something seriously, I always think, oh, how could those police officers just do such a bad job, blah, 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 right? But at the end of the day, sometimes police officers, no matter how much expertise they have, they do need that extra information from family members to actually make them see something in a different way, right? Like we look at it because we have all the information, like how could they? But at the end of the day, they're like, we can't put resources and our time into this, pay our staff X amount of money to open up a criminal investigation when we just don't have the physical evidence that would like say that a real crime took place, right?
Well, exactly. And we always hear with missing people, a lot of times they want you to report it after 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind, this is hours.
After.
Like a few hours after she was supposed to show up
Mm-hmm.
to see her family. So her family knows it's a problem because, one, they have an intuition.
Yes.
That mother, father, those intuitions, they mean a lot. We've talked about that a million times.
Yeah.
But they know their daughter as well. They know this would
Mm-hmm.
never have happened. And these police officers, they're sitting there and being like, do you know how many calls like this we get a day? And how many show up within 2-3 hours because they were just pissed the hell off and went for a walk or, left their cell phone behind and were like, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
So I can understand why they're kind of taking it slow, because it's like, what if she just, comes around the corner and be like, oh, sorry to worry everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why it's nice to have the parents and the family there to kind of, again, bring forward evidence that the investigators or the police officers might not be aware of upon like their initial overview of this missing person's case.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Bev. And so because all this information is brought to light for them, they talked to Mia's roommate and they're asking her if she had any issues with someone, if she was scared of someone or someone hated her, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And her roommate informed the police that one of the villa's maintenance workers had actually been causing her problems for the last couple weeks and creeping her out. His name was Armando Caballero. She said that Armando had tried over and over again to get with Miya, but every advance he made, Miya rejected him. She told him they were just friends. And in this specific scenario, Mia's definition of friends was coworkers that had each other's numbers, and that was it. They didn't hang out. They weren't really friends.
Wow. Yeah, because she works in the apartment complex, right? And he's the maintenance worker for the complex. So technically they are coworkers.
Yeah, they're familiar with each other.
Okay. Wow.
It was kind of one-sided.
Totally one-sided.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, it's freaky, right? It's
Well,
creepy.
I mean, and sometimes that does happen. People like people and the other person doesn't like them back.
And the rejection hurts.
Yeah.
Rejection
We've all
hurts.
been there. Let's be real. Everyone has been there.
Yeah.
If you haven't, you're
like
lying.
a person and you're getting rejected over and over.
Soul
Yikes.
crushing. Soul crushing. Now, this is where things get a little weird, a little freaky deaky. And it's because Mia's friends and family were talking to the detectives outside the apartment when suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, Armando shows up.
Creepy.
Like, why is he there, right?
Why are you there, Mr. Armando? Why?
Well, he tells the officers that a mutual friend / co-worker of him and Mia's told him that she was missing and he wanted to come down and look for her and help. Now, almost immediately, Mia's family is angered that he was there, and they are very vocal about it. They started calling him out in front of the police, saying that he was obsessed with Miya. He was relentless with the text. He had sent her money through cash apps, and at one point he offered up his life savings to her. Some of the texts also had a sexual component to them, and Miya was really uncomfortable with them. The only reason why Mia's friends and family knew about these texts from Armando is because Miya would often screenshot them and send them to her friends and family and ask for advice as to what to do. So they had seemingly all the proof they needed to maybe take him in and question the guy.
Right. And this part of the investigation is a big clue to me because I think it is very well known that perpetrators of crimes often insert themselves into the investigation. And while I'm not saying that Armando is necessarily responsible for Mia's disappearance, it does seem odd that he inserts himself into the investigation. And not only does he insert himself, but he has a weird relationship with Miya that obviously made her uncomfortable and was a little bit of a cause for concern. So to me, like, I'm thinking this is suspect number one at this point.
Well, exactly. And this is exactly how her family is feeling. So they are completely enraged that he's there. And they actually film him as they're questioning him and like kind of
confronting him.
Yes. Now, officers do ask Armando when was the last time that he had seen Miya. And he tells them around 3 p.m. and they were both working.
On the day that she went missing.
Yes. And after hearing what Armando says, and despite what the family has said, Armando was free to go. So he didn't even help look for her. Like, he didn't actually do anything except show up, enrage her family, and then leave. I mean, it was still a little unknown as to what happened, and there hadn't been any like search parties that had gone out at that moment. So maybe that makes sense. But regardless, he was shipped off to his own home, wherever that was.
And we all know that, like, without reason and without evidence or probable cause, like, the officers have to let him go.
Yeah, they can't arrest him.
Yeah, they have nothing to arrest him for, or no real reason to keep him other than him being creepy as hell.
Yeah, but, you know, on the flip side, and I understand why the family was annoyed, because they could have taken him in for questioning, not like arrest him, but he had a really odd relationship with Miya, and now she's missing, and he showed up there.
Yeah,
maybe take the man in and ask him about these weird text messages.
Yeah, do a further investigation on him as opposed to just being like, when was the last time you saw the girl, right? And then being like, okay, bye.
Yeah, we'll call you if we need you. Like, what?
Do you love true crime and travel? Having traveled the world solo the last couple of years and being obsessed with true crime, I found myself researching others who took the same vacations but never made it home. The Last Trip is a true crime podcast covering missing and murdered people that were living their best lives on vacation. I'm your host, Jamie Bevy, and each week I'll bring you on The Last Trip, taking a deep dive into vacation culture and travel spots, tips on staying alive while traveling, and ultimately recreating someone's last days in paradise. What led to their last trip? What are the hard facts? What is the final outcome? And could you be next? David Snedden was a 24-year-old college student from Utah attending Mandarin classes in Beijing when he mysteriously disappeared while hiking Tiger Leaping Gorge. Chinese authorities said he drowned in the gorge, and U.S. authorities agreed, although his body was never found and his parents didn't believe that. 7 years later, out of the blue, they got a phone call from a former U.S. official who had evidence David is still alive. This case sounds like a Hollywood movie, but evidence doesn't lie. So where is David Snedden? Famous rugby player and Celebrity X Factor contestant Levi Davis went missing in Barcelona last year while on a backpacking trip through Europe. Just days before he vanished, he posted a 15-minute video to his Instagram account saying his life was in danger and people were after him. After he disappeared, several theories emerged. But what really happened to Levi Davis? Join me, Jamie Bevy, co-host of the popular true crime series Strictly Stalking, as I embark on a brand new adventure combining true crime and travel. Listen to The Last Trip wherever you get your podcasts.
So while the police, Bev, are still at the apartment and continuing their investigation, Mia's family has kind of realized that they need or wanted to take matters into their own hands. And they actually follow a lead of their own. Ooh, family investigation. And around 8:30 on Saturday morning, they go to Armando's apartment and they park across the street. The family decided that they were going to film what they were doing just in case something happened or they caught something. You just never know. And then all of a sudden, they see Armando getting out of his car. They see him pull what looked to be a latex glove, a bag, and a blanket out of the back seat of his car and then went into his apartment. What was so disturbing about this was the pink blanket that they saw Armando carrying was a blanket that Mia's grandmother had given to her. And it was a very distinct pink blanket.
So they knew that it was, in fact, the one that Mia's grandmother had given her.
Exactly. And why would he be in possession of that?
Yes.
There should be absolutely no reason. They didn't hang out.
They weren't friends.
They weren't friends. There's absolutely no reason. Because of this, they called 911.
The family.
Yeah. They're like, we have a really solid piece of evidence here.
The police have to know.
You need to know and you need to come down here. When the police arrive, they meet up with Mia's family again. And within minutes, Armando is there too. This guy, he just like shows up out of nowhere. He's just there. I mean, it is by his apartment, but he's just there. So I wonder, was he kind of watching them too?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it kind of seems like that. Otherwise, how would he know?
Yeah, and his behavior just reads suspicious. Like, I'm going to say it again because, he's done it again. He's inserted himself into the crime or the disappearance and the investigation once again. Is he trying to keep tabs on where the police are in this investigation, Becky?
It could be. This one potentially could just be coincidence. It's at his apartment. But also, if I was him and I maybe potentially committed a crime, I would be like, get me the hell away from here. Why are the cops here? Why is her family? I'm leaving. Like, I wouldn't be waiting around to see what the cops say.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's coming from a perspective on someone who wouldn't commit a crime. But maybe if you were guilty, you would want to keep tabs.
It's true. I've never committed any crime to that nature at all to insert myself in anything.
Exactly. So what
do I know?
His motives in all of this, right?
Exactly.
What are they?
And because the family had seen all this, Bev, the police don't have a search warrant. So they can't go into his apartment and search for what the family saw.
Right.
But in a really shocking compromise, Armando allows Mia's family to search his home with police supervision. Isn't that odd?
That is weird.
Yes, but they come up with nothing. There's no blanket, no bag, no glove, nothing.
What did he do with it?
I have no clue, and they don't either. So, because of this, Armando, he's free to go again. He can go live his life however he wishes right now. But as the day progresses, detectives learn that Mia's apartment building used key fobs to open the doors. Each person that lived there had an individual key fob to get into their apartment. The apartment manager and maintenance staff had master keys. And when they analyzed the timestamps of all the used key fobs, they learned that the maintenance key fob assigned to Armando was used on Mia's apartment at 4:30 p.m. the Friday she went missing.
Creepy. Holy crap, that's creepy. And thinking back to his statement, he claims that the last time he saw her was at 3 p.m. This is a whole hour and a half later.
Exactly. And then her apartment shows at 5:06, Mia's key fob was used to enter her apartment. Now, the interesting thing is, they can actually see if the key fob was just unlocking the door and if the door was opened as well. So they can tell if someone just like accidentally unlocked it and walked away or if they entered the apartment. On both cases, with Armando's key and Mia's, there was entry into the apartment.
Oh my God, so creepy. So if we just look solely on the key fobs and what it's telling us, Armando is in the apartment when Miya arrives home.
Yeah. Now, the building manager confirmed that there was no scheduled maintenance for Mia's apartment that day. So just like you, Bev, the detectives start to think that Armando was lying in wait for Miya. Around 5:52 on Friday, the complex security guard sees Armando's car leaving the apartments, and he didn't think anything weird about it. This was normal. Done his shift for the day, he's gone. Then they noticed that around 7:01 that same evening, a maintenance call was placed. And because Armando was on call and still had his key fob, he was going to the apartments. And at 7:11, Armando called security to let him into the gate for the complex. At 7:16, Mia's key fob was used to unlock her apartment door, but it showed the door didn't get opened. It was later determined that the maintenance call that was placed at 7:01 was from Armando. Officers believe that this was him trying to set up his alibi that evening.
Right. Oh my gosh, I'm so confused though. Why would he unlock, or why would Mia's apartment be unlocked even without entry? Like, why would that happen?
From what I understand is that he faked a maintenance call for Mia's apartment.
Oh,
And
my
because
gosh,
he was
yeah.
the on-call maintenance guy, he went and unlocked it like, yep, I was there. And then he was seen leaving about a half an hour later at 7:38. He was seen leaving the villas.
Becky.
Bevy.
It almost feels like he needed a reason to be back at her apartment. So that's why he placed the 911 call or 911 call.
Just the maintenance call. Not that severe.
Psych. Just kidding, y'all. No, he places the maintenance call as an excuse to be back there reasonably.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's what the officers are believing too. So let's unpack that a little bit. Let's go through that timeline point by point so that we're all on the same page and we understand why this is so concerning. We have Armando's key fob entering Mia's apartment at 4:30 p.m. on Friday. She gets off work just before 5 and enters her own apartment at 5:06 p.m. Then Armando's vehicle is seen leaving the complex at 5:52.
About an hour later.
Exactly. And about an hour later at 7:01 is when the fake maintenance call was made by Armando. About 10 minutes later is when Armando called security to let him into the gate. By 7:15, Mia's key fob was used to unlock her apartment door, but it showed the door did not get opened. Remember that. About a half an hour later at 7:38, Armando was then seen leaving the villas.
And at no point in any of this was Miya ever seen to have left
The complex. Correct. The last footage of her was her walking from her office to her apartment just before 5.
And throughout all of this, she has missed a flight back home
Yes,
and has gone MIA with her family.
correct. Now, because of this digital timeline and all the texts and the evidence found at the crime scene, detectives believe that Armando had snuck into Mia's apartment, had broken the locks off the window, and then snuck Mia's harmed body out of the window and probably into his car.
Wow.
Now, with this picture being painted and the digital proof, detectives put a warrant out for Armando's arrest. And when officers go to get Armando to arrest him, he's not at home. And in fact, he is nowhere to be found. Now, in order to find him, they know that they now have to pull his phone records. They need to track him down. And this, unfortunately, will take a little bit of time, as we know. But before they get any records back, a 911 call comes in on Monday, September 27th from Seminole County, and police were dispatched to a garage. A cleaner had been working, and when she entered the garage, she was met with a terrible sight, something no one should ever have to see. She saw a man hanging in the garage, and she could tell he was dead and had probably been dead for a while. The police ended up identifying this man as Armando Caballero. They believe that he had been there dead since Saturday evening. So that was not long after.
Miya was missing. It was the day after, right?
Yeah, it was day after. And then just a couple hours after, Mia's family called the police on him for seeing the blanket. His last text was sent at 9:35 p.m.
On the Saturday night?
Yes.
Wow.
So now their prime suspect was dead. And they missed their opportunity to question him and find out where Miya is.
Wow. Wow, Becky.
And this was something that actually created a lot of controversy between the sheriff department and Mia's family because they felt that they were really slow to action, and it annoyed them because their thought process was, if they had acted faster, could they have found Miya before he killed himself?
Right. I'm sure there's a lot of things going on with that as well. Like, I know if someone in my family had died or was missing or suspected to have died, and the person that I thought was guilty of the crime was now dead, I would almost feel like there's no way justice could be served. Because, I don't know, I wouldn't want somebody that could have potentially killed my family member to kind of just, I don't know, I don't want to say the easy way out. Like, take the easy way out because I don't think death is like the easy way, but
they don't have to answer
for what
they
could have
did.
done, right? So yeah. I think there's a little bit of that too. Mixed in with that. I don't know. What do you think, Becky? Having Armando end his life, do you think that makes him look guilty?
Yeah. I do think it makes him look guilty. Like, what other reason? I shouldn't just assume he has no other reason to have committed suicide. But
Given,
the circumstances and the timing,
yeah, it all just seems a little bit too coincidental for it to be anything other than a guilty conscience that caused him to end his life, right?
exactly. So even though he's dead, they still want to find out, did he do something to her? Is she locked away somewhere? Is she dead?
Is there any evidence they can find to help them locate her body,
Remains,
right?
Body, person. Yeah. So all they have now is digital records and CCTV camera. On the Friday night between 8 and 9 p.m., they're able to tell that Armando had been in a place called Timberscan, which is not a safe area. In 2010, it had seen a huge increase in foreclosures, and many of the properties became vacant. And when this happens, we usually start to see a rise in crime, illegal activities, and by 2021, it had lost all its water and garbage services. So you can imagine how kind of run down this neighborhood is.
Yes.
And officers learned that at one point, Armando had resided there, and he knew the area.
So he goes somewhere that's familiar.
Exactly.
But also somewhere that isn't like, I don't know, a popular place to be, right? Like it's kind of run down and kind of seems like a decent dumping ground, no?
Yeah. Because, like, why would you be there unless you're homeless, in the crime scene, drug scene, stuff like that, right?
Exactly.
Now, because his phone had pinged there, he had lived there at one point, officers believed that this was a great place to start their search for Miya. And on October 2nd, 2021, Mia's remains were found in a wooded area in Timberscan. She had been found with her mouth, hands, and feet bound with black duct tape. She was partially clothed. She had jeans, a bra, and a robe on. Now, because of the hot Florida sun, her body had decomposed rather quickly, and by the time they found her, she was mostly just a skeleton. They also found her purse with her ID in it nearby. Mia's body was found in the same location that Armando's phone pinged in. When the officers searched through Armando's things, they found his clothing with Mia's blood on it. Adding everything together, they believed without a doubt that Armando was their killer. Unfortunately, they never found her pink blanket. They have no idea what he did with it. When investigators check Armando's past, they see that he has had other run-ins with the law. In 2013, Armando had detonated a homemade explosive in secondary school as a prank. He was charged for that, and then earlier in 2021, he had worked at a different apartment complex and asked a female resident out on a date. She had accepted. They planned to hang out a couple days later, but Armando called and wanted to see her that night, and he was very insistent on it. The woman ultimately declined because she felt he was being too pushy and didn't want to. This made him so angry that in the middle of the night, a dumbbell was thrown through one of her windows, and it was assumed, but not quite proven, that it was Armando, because there was no one else that could have done it.
Or would have had a reason to do it.
Exactly.
Not that someone declining a date with you that night is reason to throw a dumbbell in their window, but Wow, so just like hearing all of that, Armando is like that classic jilted lover or like jilted obsessor, getting rejected and getting angry.
Real angry.
And he has a pattern of it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So this is all giving me more proof that he felt that the walls were closing in around him, and that is why he ultimately ended his life, right? Because he knows what he did.
Yeah.
He knows he has a history of it, and he knows that it's going to be pretty easy for the police, if they do investigate him, to close in on him.
Exactly. Like, it only took them 3 days to figure this all out. So because of Armando's criminal history, a lot of people felt that Arden Villas was negligent in hiring Armando because of his record. However, the company kind of stood behind themselves, and they had vetted him for burglary and sexual assault, which he had no history of. So therefore, they thought he was in the clear to hire. But the controversy is that they didn't do a full criminal check. And that's why people think that they were negligent.
Right, because if they had done a further check into his criminal past, they would have seen kind of like obsession with women and their violent streak.
Exactly. The Villa's management were also judged, as it took them 3 days before releasing a statement acknowledging that Miya disappeared. They were highly criticized because they never reached out to Mia's family to offer their condolences or take any responsibility for this situation.
Which is kind of shitty because we are aware of the key fob situation and how he so easily entered her apartment, right?
Well, exactly. So the least they could do was offer their condolences. What's also really interesting, Bev, is the police force was also criticized for acting slow on this case. Like we mentioned it before, they saw a crime scene but didn't really move it forward at a pace the family would have liked. And once they found out how obsessive Armando was towards Miya, people felt that they should have brought him in right away, and then maybe they would have been able
To have him, like,
questioned, suffer legal consequences that he deserved.
right.
Jumping a little forward to December of 2021, Mia's autopsy had come back. And this is what's kind of sad, and it all plays into the negligence of the sheriff's department. Because of Mia's extreme decomposition, they could not get any DNA off of her.
Right, and if they had found her sooner, they might have been able to, right?
Exactly, yes, Bev. And because of the restraints, it's believed that some type of assault did take place, but it was undetermined as to what type. Was it sexual? Was it physical?
They don't know.
They have no idea. And just like her death, they don't know how she died. They only know that it was a homicide. So they have virtually zero answers for Mia's family.
Which would be torture.
Exactly. They can put a decent timeline together, and that is it. And because Armando is dead himself, they can't even charge him with Mia's death. And because of that, the case is just closed.
Like, they know who did it. They know that she's dead. But
He's also dead.
so that's it.
That's it. It's closed. Like, how anticlimactic for the family.
Right.
And it, to me, would feel like no justice is served. I think what I would find a bit of peace in, if I were Mia's family, is the fact that when they realized something was wrong, Miya was already dead, and that there was nothing that they could have done to change that outcome. Even if the police reacted faster, if they had interviewed Armando faster, she was already dead.
It wouldn't have changed the outcome.
Exactly.
Right?
And I'm not saying that that's a good thing. I would find a little bit of peace. Like, I wouldn't dwell on the fact that, like, if I had only done this, if I had only
Yes.
done that, right?
The what ifs, yeah.
Exactly.
No, that makes sense. I do wonder if it does give them peace.
I say that because I've never lost anyone in this tragic way. So
Who knows? But if you think about it,
if I try to put myself in their shoes.
yeah, you would think that that would give you some peace, just knowing that there was no error on your end that could have changed the outcome for your loved one, right?
Exactly. And that the police reacting slow didn't change that either. Although it was annoying and frustrating,
Yeah.
she was already gone before anyone even knew something bad had happened.
Right.
Now, oftentimes in these crime cases, some good comes from these deaths. And one of those was Miya's Law. It was created and it strives to elevate security in residential living spaces. That means that they have to do nationwide background checks, so not just selective. And they have to do this if anyone is to be hired. It also includes the tracking of keys and key fobs that the staff has access to, as well as 24-hour advance notice to the resident before maintenance or anyone needs to enter their living quarters. So it can't just be emergency, you're called, 20 minutes later you're in the apartment.
Right.
There has to be a reason for them to go in and advance notice so everyone knows where everyone is.
I like that.
Which I was surprised that that was a law created in 2021 and 2022 because we have that here where we live. And even when I was like 19 living in an apartment, that was the law the whole time.
Yeah, so you're like, how are they so behind on this? Really?
But thank God it was addressed.
Yeah, and that this is a somewhat positive thing that has come from Miya's death.
Exactly. The family also created the Miya Foundation to help vulnerable populations. After doing all this good stuff in Miya's name, Miya's mother and father filed lawsuits against the Arden Villas and management partner. They believed that the ability for the staff to have access to the master key 24/7 was negligent, as well as they did not do their due diligence on Armando's background check. They should have looked for all criminal activity nationwide this lawsuit was settled.
So they won.
They won.
Wow.
I couldn't find out what they won, what was
the
outcome,
real outcome,
but it was settled. Her parents also sued the sheriff's office for being deliberately indifferent. When they had first seen Mia's room, they did not treat it as a crime scene, even though there was reason to. The pillow was bloody, the door was barricaded, and the locks on the window were broken off. By not treating the scene as suspicious, they lost valuable hours. They could have found Mia's body in better condition, and if so, they would have found more evidence and been able to give the family some answers as to what happened to their daughter. They could have answered what her cause of death was. Was she sexually assaulted? And could they have caught Armando before he took his own life? On top of that, they were given crucial information in regards to Armando, aka his obsessive behavior. He would have been worth speaking to immediately. And with all of these factors, the family decided to sue the sheriff's department. However, this case is still currently pending. So I don't know the outcome. Hopefully I'll come across it and I'll keep my eyes out in the news and we can one day see what the result of this is.
But I would have to say, I do agree with the family suing them in some regards, because we talked about it earlier in this case when you were just outlining the details. Like, how can you not think it's suspicious that her door was barricaded or that the windows were...
The locks
were broken. Like, that is suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree that they did lose valuable hours, and ultimately they did not get the answers they were looking for as a result. So I think there's some weight to that argument.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. Well, Bev, this is the very sad case of Miya Mercano and her untimely death. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for sharing, Becky.